Here with Christina, writes under the pen name Radix Verum, and she's my official alternative platform, national security, everything FBI related reporter, and it was willing to come on and talk about this really weird case. The reason I was kind of trying to figure out how to explain who you are, Christina, is because because you're like the queen of the weird stories. I mean,
I know.
that's really what I want to call you. I call you like to national security, like, what do I really, no, really, it's just like things that don't add up. That's Christina's specialty. So this is a kind of a weird story, and it's breaking right now. We figured let's just take a look at what Rolling Stone is reporting about it and ask some questions. Because I mean, a lot of this stuff is unanswerable at this point, but the headline is FBI raids star ABC News producer's home. Emmy-winning producer James Gordon Meek had his home raided by the FBI. His colleagues say they haven't seen him since. Now, one reason they may have not seen him since is because he apparently like abruptly resigned from ABC. And I got the impression that was prior to this raid.
Yes.
Why it's not clear in this article. He did a lot of military and national security reporting. You know, what exactly was going on with this FBI raid is still also kind of mysterious in the article. His attorney says, according to what they told Rolling Stone, said that whatever he would have had on his computer, given the nature of the work he does, if he had like classified documents, or he wouldn't have classified documents, but whatever he had would be within the scope of his working as a journalist. And also, like, here, like, this is his coworker. He fell off the face of the earth, and people asked, but no one knew the answer. Resigned very abruptly and hasn't worked for us for months. So this is his attorney. Mr. Meek is unaware of what allegations anonymous sources are making about his possession of classified documents. If such documents exist as claimed, this would be within the scope of his long career as an investigative journalist covering government wrongdoing. The allegations in your inquiry are troubling for a different reason. They appear to come from a source inside the government. It is highly inappropriate and illegal for individuals in the government to leak information about an ongoing investigation. We hope that the DOJ promptly investigates the source of this leak. So he's saying that to Rolling Stone, right? Like, how did you even know about this? Yes. One thing that's interesting in here is that Rolling Stone says this is like the first time that a journalist has been raided by the FBI under the Biden administration. But I guess that means they don't consider James O'Keefe a journalist because...
Right? That's what I was thinking. Yeah, hello?
So I guess, like, we should also say that, you know, he did a documentary recently about military operation, I guess Green Berets in like the Niger region, where families contacted him and said that the military statement about why these guys died was false and they were lying. And then he does this documentary and says, yeah, they were lied to. The families were lied to. The government basically said these guys went rogue. And they were operating outside of what we had told them to do, when in fact that was not the case, he said. So just really like military, you know, inside source kind of guy. And at the same time also seems to be kind of cozy with the military establishment, which so it's just very weird, like
so strange.
Yeah,
like his history is really interesting. He was like on the ground right after 9/11, like reporting from the Pentagon. He had interviewed Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Guantanamo Bay, so it seems like he does have a lot of connections in the military establishment. But that story, 3212 Unredacted, the documentary that he did on the scandal in Niger, that alleged a cover-up like at the Pentagon. He even called it like the Pentagon's betrayal or something, which was very interesting. And he was also co-authoring a book about the Biden administration's abrupt withdrawal from Afghanistan. And then Simon and Schuster removed all references to him. Like, he'd been promoting that on he'd been promoting it on his social media, and now it's just kind of like being erased. So it is really, really weird. Like, obviously something's going on here. And as far as the raid itself, this was a pre-dawn tactical paramilitary style raid in unmarked vehicles with blacked out windows. The FBI confirmed that they conducted it, but they used armored vehicles, and at least I think 10 vehicles, which was really interesting. And it just so happened that where he lives in Arlington, it is like a really upscale neighborhood and apartment complex. And one of his neighbors just happened to be like a law enforcement historian and recognized the armored vehicles and was like, "Oh, this is, weird."
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole thing is strange.
Right. So, yeah, as you were saying, like here, let's just some of the stuff that they wrote about him here. No one straddled both worlds quite like Meek, an Emmy-winning deep dive journalist who also was a former senior counterterrorism advisor and investigator for the House Homeland Security Committee. To me, that's odd, Christina.
It's weird, right? Like, so he's working for Homeland Security, but he's
and he's
also
a journalist.
a national security reporter, right? It almost seems like a cover story. Like he's a reporter, but he's also like working for the government. It's really strange. And then the way he disappears is just like even stranger. But yeah, like this is somebody who was like a very prominent journalist. That Hulu documentary, there was, the buzz that this was going to get an Emmy and stuff like that. So this is somebody that was like very prominent, at ABC and just in his career. So it's very strange, like what's happening here, how he just disappears, goes off the map. And like no one says anything about it until now in October. And all court documents are sealed. It is very strange, to say the least.
Yeah, and so like let's take his lawyer at face value and say there was some kind of government leak about what's going on, his not being seen. Like why? Why now, and what would the purpose of that be? And I don't know. It's all very mysterious. And like, why Rolling Stone?
Exactly.
From all outlets. And I think, Rolling
interesting.
Stone has written some pieces that I think a lot of us would look at and go, yeah, that's not right. And so you also have to be skeptical of like what they put here. I mean, we don't know if what they put here is correct or not.
Yeah, that's true. Although I will say Seth Harp is a Rolling Stone journalist, and he had been covering the Fort Bragg deaths, which is something that I was covering and nobody was talking about in the media. And then he started reporting on it, and it got to the point where the Fort Bragg stopped like reporting the deaths because it was just happening so frequently, and some of them were so strange. But I always question like these kinds of publications for sure. And also who these sources are. Anytime I hear like anonymous sources, I'm already like, okay, skeptical of it, because I tend to think that these people have their own agenda. So whoever the source was for this story, yeah, the question is why now? What's the agenda? What's really going on? What happened with this raid? Was he renditioned somewhere? Like, we really don't know. Or did he choose to disappear? And if so, why? Why did he just disappear right after this raid in the dead of night? Where did he go? What's going on? Yeah,
Davina says his cover as a journalist was blown. I mean, who knows?
We don't know. It's just such a strange story. And I think that it should get more coverage. That's for sure. Because we want to know what happened.
Well, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see who's covering, because like right now, I mean, if I do a quick search of it, it's the New York Post, the Daily Beast, Salon, Rolling Stone, but it doesn't appear that like the CNNs or NBCs or whatever have picked up on it yet. And maybe that's just because they want to confirm it. I don't know, and they don't just want to repeat.
Yeah, because that's all of those other articles. I looked at them. They're all just regurgitating the Rolling Stone piece. They're basically just reporting on that story. Local Arlington News, they did report on the raid back when it happened. And so, but they're basically just saying, yeah, we reported on that, like this raid happened back in April, but we didn't really know much information, and we still don't know much now. which I
Mhm.
just think is crazy. Like, this is in my area. I live in Fairfax County, so just to hear that there's this another pre-dawn tactical raid conducted at the home of like a journalist, and that it doesn't get that much coverage like back when it happened in April, just to me is kind of stunning that could happen. That means that could happen to any of us. If this big, like, important guy breaking these big stories, in his career for a long time, if that could happen to him, and no one really
Mhm.
talks about it. I don't know, I just think that's disturbing.
Yeah, it's weird to let's like another scenario. Okay. Christina, I'm working at my old station. The FBI raids my house. I go missing. Okay, my coworkers, I can guarantee you, just because like I'm friends with a lot, I had a lot of friends in the office. They would be reporting on it because it would be great ratings too. Like on top of,
Yeah,
you know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, where the hell is Allison? But like, also, let's go with this because a lot of people will probably watch. Why weren't they, why wasn't anybody like trying to figure out if he was okay?
That's
Or
why, yeah, exactly. That's why I feel like there's more to this story, and for some reason, they don't wanna publicize it. There's something, some kind of scandal here maybe that they don't want to call attention to. I don't know. It's just so strange to me, and then reviewing his social media posts, it just seems like, this is not a guy that seemed like he was really rocking the boat that hard, certainly against the national security establishment. Like, he seemed to agree with a lot of the things that they said. So it's so strange. It's just a really strange story, and I'd like to know more.
yeah.
Was
To
this
his
related to the Afghan withdrawal, the book that he was participating
Mhm.
in? I don't know.
Yeah, this line, to his detractors within ABC, Meek was something of a military fanboy. And you know, I I can't say who we were just talking about anonymous sources. I'll just say somebody who has been on, I'll say somebody who's been on this channel before, very familiar with like military operations and the military industrial complex, as it's often referred to, um, has made mention that like there were stories that, or at least one in particular, where their unit was covered by this guy, James Gordon Meek, and the information that he reported appears to be very like high level pro military administrative talking points. And so yeah, like it just seems weird. Okay, so you're exposing the military, but you're also like getting information from top level sources that appears, at least to the folks I have heard from, disinformation. But obviously he was connected. I mean, I guess at the end of the day
Yes.
we can say that he was connected. He was connected to
Yes.
some high level people.
Yeah, in that article also, it says that his coworkers at ABC were unsure of his past, that his past was sort of mysterious and murky, and they weren't sure if he had worked in the military at some point in the past. That he was very familiar with like their terminology, and obviously had contacts. So I thought that was very interesting. Um, but yeah, I think it's also kind of funny that they act like that. Oh, that's the first time this has happened under the Biden administration. They literally raided Donald Trump, and they used the same pretext that there was classified information as like their reason for that. That's another thing that I thought
Well,
was weird. I
they're talking about
immediately,
journalists in this, not
well,
just any.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, maybe Trump's a
but still,
journalist at
it's
this
just
point.
like wild to me. And
Yeah.
I also thought of Michael Hastings immediately, and the fact that what happened with him, that he was, I guess, under investigation by the FBI right before he died in a fiery car crash, and he had also been working on an expose on John Brennan, who was the CIA director at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What does this mean, Christina? Mrs. Schmidt to Mr. Schmidt, circa 1933. Johann, did you hear heavy pounding on the neighbor's door last night? The newspaper says nothing about it.
I
I
have
don't know what
no
that means.
idea, but I'm thinking like that they're referencing sort of like the secret police in Germany, going door
Oh,
to door, and people not, oh, like the news isn't reporting it. Like, yeah, of course they're not going to talk about it. It is
yeah.
something that is reminiscent of like maybe the secret police or something, but I just think that there's far more going on here. than the Rolling Stone article is portraying, and that initially is obvious.
Okay, this is where it gets freaky, a little bit freaky. Let's listen real fast to what he says here in this interview. Again, this was about the Niger documentary that he produced. Once again, saying it exposed lies of, the military administration. Okay, here we go. Let me know if you can't hear it, Christina.
Okay.
All seen movies where investigative reporters, especially dealing with the government or the military, anytime you thought you were in danger or people said, leave this alone, or was it pretty much, you felt safe in what you were doing?
Well, I'm a pretty savvy guy, and I'm 6'7", and I've been around for a while, and I figured, if the Taliban didn't get me in Afghanistan, I don't think anybody else. No, I never had.
Not easy to scare.
Maybe I was naive, I don't know, but I was really focused on the Pentagon made their findings public in May 2018. The commanding general, a 4-star general, General Thomas Waldhauser, who commanded all operations in Africa for the entire military, said that the team that was ambushed had gone, in fact, rogue. They'd gone on an unapproved mission by their senior commanders to hunt down and kill an ISIS commander who was like the number 3 guy in Africa. And then the second thing he said is the team was incompetent, effectively, and they were untrained, unprepared, unskilled, like other special operations teams in Africa. And then the third thing he said that was really eye-popping was, he said, but their third of 3 missions during 24 hours they were outside the wire had involved a search for intelligence on an American who had been kidnapped by Islamist militants a year earlier. And it's like, wait, so they're hunting down a guy and then searching this guy's campsite who they thought was possibly holding an American hostage. How does any of that make sense? It didn't on the face of it. And it turned out a lot of it was just garbage. It just wasn't true.
Okay, so there he is, like 2 big takeaways from that. Number 1, like, did anyone tell you shouldn't go near this because this could be dangerous? You could be disappeared. And he's like, nah, I'm huge. I've been around for a long time. It'll be fine. Then he's gone. And then also he describes how he's like, exposing these fake stories given to the families of these Green Berets. He's exposing it as lies. So basically, like, making the military's top brass look bad. But he's also known as, like, very pro-military, and I don't know. Anyway, I just figured I'd share all that.
Yeah, I think it's really strange. And in some sense, you could say that, like, he's focused on stories like about ISIS and stuff like that, and he went and interviewed Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I think there's a lot of us who don't believe the official story as far as 9/11 goes, and think that there was more to that story. So it's, in some ways, it's like he's kind of promoting, like, the official narrative on certain major stories and scandals, and then he's also unraveling other scandal. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know what to make of it. And as that article said, he's straddling both worlds. He has these connections. He is pro-military. They don't know if he's worked for the military in his past. His past is murky and shadowy, but somehow he rose to become, a pretty prominent person in the mainstream news. So it's all very bizarre.
Somebody replied about the Mr. Schmidt, Mrs. Schmidt thing. On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. That evening, members of the Nazi Party carried fiery torches as they paraded through the streets of Berlin. Maybe that was the reference. I don't know. I mean, it's it's a weird case, and here, thanks for reporting on this today. I saw the Rolling Stone article yesterday as well, and haven't been able to find anyone else talking about it. I think Christina's a really good person to hear from about this, because I think, Christina, you don't make statements that you haven't been able to cross-check or confirm or back up. I mean, you're not just like, just willing to just sort of rant off. Like, I know this to be true, but it's really your opinion. So but you ask good questions. And I think this is a story that has a lot of questions, and even just questioning Rolling Stone, not even just saying like, okay, Rolling Stone says all this, like what, so taking them at face value and then questioning all the rest of it. I mean, maybe the whole story is, or not all of it, but there's like little pieces of truth, but there's also some stuff in there that's planted as misleading. I mean, who knows? It's a weird case. Well,
it absolutely is weird.
Any final thoughts? Let me real fast give my shout out to my sponsor. I don't think that drinking wine will clear your head in order to see what's really going on here. Probably it'll do the opposite. But you know what? If you're going to be doing a lot of reading and you're cozying up by the fire now as fall is turning into winter, grab a high altitude Malbec at AllisonWinePromo.com. And you know what? There's not a lot of questions or disinformation here. I'm going to tell it to you straight. This is high altitude, remote region, Argentinian. I guess it's Argentine. Malbecs. They're very good. One is from a very, very small operation where they handpick the grapes. The wine is really good. And one from 9,000 feet, which means the grape skins work harder to protect the grape. So these are like very, very unique wines. Can't get them at the grocery store. As you guys hear me say many, many times, I love working with this company because they support free speech, but also they support these small operations in Argentina. One uses natural fermentation, for instance. Like these are really high quality wines, but you get a great deal on them, 50% off the wine itself and 50% off shipping. And so if you're like me and you've got two crazy kids, one newborn and one 2-year-old, and you're at the end of the day, you're like, you know what, I just need a good glass of wine. What better than to support my channel? Go to AllisonWinePromo.com and help support my work and keep people like Christina coming back on, and then also have a great glass of wine to boot. So, all right, I guess did we cover this enough? Do we need to ask any more questions? What's your final read on it?
I think we've covered it enough. I mean, really, there's only so much that we can say. At the end of the day, we're left with more questions and no answers. Yet until more information comes out. But I do think it's important, like, hey guys, if I was disappeared in the middle of the night after a pre-dawn paramilitary tactical raid on my home, I hope somebody would talk about it and ask some questions.
Well, and one thing we didn't say, but we probably should just put out there is his Twitter feed from back when this happened. This was, I guess, the day that the raid happened. He just wrote facts on Twitter, and this is what he was retweeting. This is in regards to, U.S. defense official described a bonanza of information the American military has gleaned about Russian tactics and procedures by watching how they perform in combat since the February 24th invasion. We call it free chicken. And then this person says, actually, it started a long time ago. We learned this between 2014 and 2022. Not just now. It was an 8-year lab experiment on Russian TTPs, on EW, on everything. This is why Ukrainians with our advice assist are doing so well. Ask those in IC and UW communities. We learned a shit ton. And so that's what he was saying facts about.
Yeah, Whitney Webb reported on that. She wrote an article about the Russia-Ukraine thing, and she said that the CIA had actually been training Ukraine's forces since 2014. They've been there, like, involved in this sort of like proxy, this proxy war. They're training Ukraine's intelligence services. And yeah, I think that's kind of wild. So he was saying facts. He knew then that, we've been there for a while.
Yeah. But, it's like, I don't know. Maybe this is just my filter, but like when I read this tweet, it's like, it's a little bit biased towards that being a good thing.
Yeah. Why is that right? A good thing? Why should we be involved in this at all?
Right. Yeah. Like, it's like, this is why Russia's, eating dirt right now, allegedly, because we got in the game early. And so
so we're at war with a nuclear power is what this is actually saying. And he thinks that's a good thing. And I think that's insane. And if you scroll through the rest of his feed, it's like he's really pro-Ukraine, really anti-Russia, it seems like. But this is obviously his beat is like the intelligence community, national security, the military. And he obviously has a lot of connections high up in both the intelligence community and the military. So the entire thing is absolutely bizarre.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's just, a lot. You're right. A lot of like Ukraine, Russia news, but with the perspective of, Ukraine as kind of helpless victim, I guess.
Yeah.
So, well, Okay, that's it. That's what's going on in the news today when it comes to Rolling Stone, and just another weird news, weird things in the news with Christina.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to start calling it.
Weird things with the FBI,
Yeah.
just doing what they do.
Yeah, the FBI just doing what they do, and the interesting thing I think would be if you were to take this like and oversimplify it, and you could say like, okay, how would something like this be used to be politically divisive, or to, in some way move the public in a particular direction as a reaction to it? I could see how if you didn't ask some of the questions we've been asking here or do the research, you'd say, see, the FBI is raiding another journalist, and they're doing crazy things. And I don't know if that's my takeaway from this one, because I don't totally know if it's as clear cut as that.
No,
It's just like a clear cut journalist and the clear cut FBI, and it's very mysterious. But it does seem like, for some reason, that like I said, if you wanted, I don't know, if you wanted to keep pushing people towards skepticism on the precipice of becoming an extremist, as we know, like the powers that be, or a lot of like the media headlines, it's extremism, right? And the FBI's, right, Christina, have been in the news a lot lately. Like, we know that the social media companies are being pressured to remove threats to the FBI, and right, because they're like, oh, everybody hates the FBI right now. And then this comes out, FBI goes after ABC producer. I mean, it's just weird. Like, it's just so weird.
And they're now going to make the Whitmer thing a TV series, which I think is also like, I was not expecting that. That just took me by surprise. But like, of course they would, but again, like, it's going to cause more people to just look into what actually happened there and find out about like what the misconduct was. It's just so weird. I don't even know what's happening anymore. I swear.
And you need to come back on, definitely, and talk about the whole Whitmer case, because you're working on a documentary and everything. And but of course, like, if you want to get on top of something before it breaks from some other source, so that you're the first one on it and have influence over the way it's perceived, then of course you would have like a TV show or something like that. Which is why, again, like, it makes me wonder why, like, let's say, like, again, that the attorney for this guy is onto something, that there was a DOJ leak to Rolling Stone about or some other federal agency about this guy's computer having classified documents or whatever else. Like, why now? Why were they, was it so that Rolling Stone would run with it, and then now here we are all talking about it, but
and preempt maybe a story he's covering. What if he went dark to finish a story or something, and he was going to break some information, and they just preempted that? I don't know. It is really weird, though, and it's strange that like his family, I don't think, has said anything. I know he has daughters. I don't know how old they are, but I don't think they've said much about like him being missing. So I really don't know what happened to this guy. I have no idea. I don't know if he's being held somewhere. I don't know if he chose to go off the grid after this happened, after he was raided. I have no idea what's going on. And because the court documents are sealed, we don't even have a hint of what is going on in the background. But it does seem like there are, in any case, interested parties will have their own agenda for this, and are going to try to probably influence the perception about it. And he can't speak for himself right now. So
well, somebody on ROKFIN says that Rolling Stone is a CIA front.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Who knows?
Exactly.
I mean, it's
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I like I said.
And there's interagency competition between like the military, the CIA, the FBI, like special forces and the CIA, especially recently.
That's so true. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that was one thing that Fred Galvin wrote in his book. I think I have it here. No. Oh yeah, here. I highly recommend it. A Few Bad Men, the true story of U.S. Marines ambushed in Afghanistan and betrayed in America. It's really interesting, but he goes into a lot of detail about that so that you'll understand because for those of us who are like, well, why would, like, what would be the end game of the administration, like the military managers? What would be their end game with creating these fake narratives and cornering their own people, you know, or like why would they not support, like they would send their folks on missions without supporting them? Like that seems like why that would make them look bad, or like why like all these just crazy things you hear about in the background that don't really make a whole lot of sense. In a lot of ways, like you said, there's competition between the agencies. They get mad and bratty and catty if like one unit gets more support than another, or like more attention. I mean, it really boils down to, in some cases, just like people who, number one, are encouraged through that revolving door of money, you know, to private industry and then back into federal, you know, work. And so then who are they really working for? But then, yeah, like just very basic psychiatric issues. Like you just you hate your mom or dad, or you know, you're an egomaniac or whatever, and you make decisions like that. And like you said, yeah, I mean, and sometimes like they'll sacrifice their own, you know, to make, you know, to, I don't know, in some way to make others or the lower level look bad, just to puff themselves up. So they'll look better than maybe the other agency that did something similar. They say, well, look at, you know, you guys are worse, or what. It's just so weird and dramatic. And it seems like it would be high school, but it's like geopolitics and war, which is frightening.
Which inside our own like government, that you have these competing factions, right? And I think it was after this incident that happened in 2017. I don't think it was directly after. I think it was actually in 2018 or 2019. Trump pulled out the CIA from Africa and he put in special forces instead. So like, the CIA might have an interest in burning like somebody, you know, that was connected to the military in some way, or special forces or something. Who knows? Like they have their own reasons for doing things. We don't know until we get more information, but it's just something to think about and consider, that there's definitely something to this story and something interesting going on, you know.
Okay. Well, Christina, as always, thanks again. Where should people go to make sure they're keeping up with your work?
My Substack, and I'm trying to do more on my YouTube channel, so you can follow me there also. I don't know how consistent I am with my uploads. It's just whenever I feel like covering something, but I'm trying to do it like more lately. So you can follow me there also.
And Christina's working on a documentary with one of the guys who was acquitted in the Governor Whitmer, as you call it, the Fednapping plot. And so you're going to come back on and maybe with him to talk about it. So it should be really interesting, because actually Esquire just wrote a really, you know, a fascinating article, basically, you know, questioning the whole narrative too, like, which is also just very odd. I mean, you were leading on that for a long time, and now it's like, it's becoming a mainstream thing. But then you see a TV show coming out to basically push that back down, you know, underground.
And I don't know how many people know this, but the FBI has a media liaison like department. So like these Hollywood movies and TV shows can't just talk about like the FBI. They can't use the badge, the logo, the name without getting permission from the FBI. They have to approve it, and they'll have somebody that'll look over the script and make sure the agency is portrayed how they want. So this TV show, even if it did, let's just say, even if it did want to tell the truth, they would only be allowed to say so much, because the FBI is going to have like sign off on their script and how the agency is portrayed anyways. Not that I believe that they're interested in the truth anyways. But I just think that is, it's on the one hand getting some mainstream acknowledgement and recognition that like, hey, we were wrong about this thing initially. And the guy from Esquire said that he believed what was said at first when it first broke. Then he started looking more into it and was like, oh yeah, this is crazy. And he talked to Brandon. He reached out to him. He had conversations with him. He worked on that story for many months, and it's a big write-up. Like it was a big story for them. They put a lot of resources and time into it. So I think that's great. And I think that that's only because of people like myself, Julia Kelly, and others who had been covering that case and kind of forcing people to acknowledge the obvious, you know?
Yeah. Well, that'll be an interesting stream to do. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well,
fun.
thanks for watching. Go check out Christina's work, Radix Verum on Substack. She's also on Locals, radixverum.locals.com, so you can support her there. And we will see you next time.